Hello, family. Enjoy this relaxing moment with Surly Tales. Remember to hit the like button, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. It means the world to us. Also, share this video with your friends and loved ones, and turn on post notifications so you don't miss future videos from us. Thank you as you do so. Sit back and relax as we dive into the story. Ifeanyi Enyenwu was renowned throughout Lagos as a man of resounding wealth, deep connections, and an even deeper sense of compassion. 38 years old, he had risen from the dusty streets of Ajagunle to become the CEO of Enyenwu Holdings, his business empire spanning real estate, agriculture, and technology investments across Nigeria and beyond. With an estimated net worth of $42 million, he had once vowed never to forget his roots or turn a blind eye to someone in distress. It was through whispered rumors at an exclusive fundraiser that Ifeanyi first heard about a shady auction. The event was said to be somewhere on the outskirts of a neighboring city, a place notorious for under-the-table dealings. Initially, he dismissed it as an ugly rumor. Human auctions seemed too horrific to be real in modern-day Nigeria. But when he dug deeper, he realized that these claims were indeed valid. Corrupt individuals preyed on the vulnerable, luring them with false promises of jobs or better opportunities, only to auction them off to the highest bidder in clandestine gatherings. Ifeanyi could not stomach the idea. The thought of an innocent life being sold like mere property gnawed at him. So, he used his influence to set up a covert infiltration of one such operation. On a sweltering afternoon, dressed in a simple black kaftan with a matching cap, he arrived at a heavily guarded warehouse on the outskirts of town. There, men in suits hovered with fleeting, cold expressions, their eyes grazing over the men and women huddled like frightened animals, waiting to be sold. Among the terrified group stood a young lady named Zara. Barely 22, she had large, haunted eyes and trembling hands. Her once vibrant spirit had been dimmed by weeks of captivity. Yet even in her silence, there was an aura about her. An unspoken determination in the way she stood, refusing to lower her gaze completely. Ifeanyi noticed her immediately. She seemed different from the others, resolute despite her ordeal, as if she refused to completely break under the cruelty around her. The auction began in a hushed yet tense environment. Nervous onlookers raised their hands, bidding on different individuals. While several people were sold for sums ranging from thousands to hundreds of thousands of naira, Zara's turn came, and the starting price was alarmingly high, an exploitative figure meant to discourage casual buyers. Ifeanyi realized the perpetrators might see something special in Zara, perhaps her intelligence or potential. As the price climbed higher, many bidders began to drop out. They simply did not have the funds or the inclination to invest so heavily in a single life. Ifeanyi, though, did not waver. His moral compass guided him, and he stood firm. Every time a new bid came in from some unscrupulous buyer, Ifeanyi countered without a flinch. An electric tension filled the room as the final two bidders dueled in numbers: $6 million, $7 million, then $8 million. Outrage and confusion spread through the onlookers. It was inconceivable to them that anyone would place such a colossal sum for an unassuming young lady. Yet, Ifeanyi pressed on. At last, a hush befell the gathering when he declared a bid of $10.5 million, exactly half of his entire fortune. The auctioneer's gavel struck like thunder, and the crowd exploded in a flurry of shocked whispers. Zara was effectively purchased, but in truth she had been saved. Ifeanyi, chest tight and heart racing, simply stepped forward and demanded that Zara be released into his custody at once. He had no desire to participate in such a horrifying event again, but he could not leave her behind. The hustlers who ran the operation were only too happy to accept. A sum of $10.5 million was an unimaginable windfall, even in their illicit trade. Ifeanyi handed over the agreed payment in a matter of days through a discreet channel, ensuring Zara's safe release. In the days that followed, he cooperated with local authorities, passing information that would hopefully dismantle future auctions of this nature. Though justice moved slowly, the spark of investigation had been lit. Zara was shaken to the core, but from the moment Ifeanyi approached her, she knew this was no ordinary man. He spoke to her with genuine concern, an air of kindness emanating from him that neither the filthy warehouse nor the harsh circumstances could diminish. Her legs wobbled as she followed him, no longer bound by ropes or threats, but escorted by a promise of safety. As they climbed into Ifani's sleek, black SUV, Zara could hardly believe her terrifying nightmare might be coming to an end. That night, the car sped along Lagos's congested highways, passing bright neon lights, towering billboards, and the sprawling metropolis that never truly slept. Zara gazed out of the window, her mind a whirlwind of emotions: relief, uncertainty, lingering fear. Ifani, glancing at her from time to time, silently marveled at how fate had brought him here. He vowed to do everything in his power to ensure she never again experienced the hopelessness that had nearly consumed her. Little did either of them know that this singular act of compassion would sow the seeds of a life-altering journey, one that would redefine their fates and bring them a love neither ever dreamed possible in such dire circumstances. Zara woke up to the faint smell of fried plantains and fresh coffee wafting through the hallway. The events of the previous days felt like a surreal blur: the claustrophobic warehouse, the shocking numbers flung around the auction room, and the quiet, reassuring presence of the stranger who saved her. Now, she was safe, nestled in a guest bedroom within Ifani's expansive home in Ikoyi, an upscale neighborhood known for its leafy streets, luxurious condos, and serene waterfront views of Lagos Lagoon. The bedroom was elegantly furnished with polished mahogany furniture and subtle African art pieces lining the walls. A tall window draped in silky curtains let in rays of sunlight that gently illuminated the crisp, white linen bedspread. Sliding her feet into a pair of soft slippers placed neatly beside the bed, Zara glanced at her reflection in the large mirror. She saw someone still grappling with fear, but also sensed a silent determination. She wouldn't let her trauma define her. If life had granted her a second chance, she intended to seize it. She ventured out, following the aroma to a spacious, open-plan kitchen. Standing by a marble countertop, flipping fried plantains in a wide pan, was Ifani. He was dressed casually in a navy polo shirt and trousers, a stark contrast to the formal attire he'd worn at the auction. His warm smile immediately set her at ease. "Good morning, Zara," he said gently. "I hope you slept well. We can't ignore what happened, but I want to make sure you're comfortable here. Consider this place your home for as long as you need." His voice resonated with sincerity. Embarrassment and gratitude mixed in Zara's chest. She offered a small, shy smile. "Thank you, sir," she began to say, but Ifani interrupted her kindly. "Please, call me Ifani." She nodded, feeling a warmth spread through her. Over breakfast, lightly salted fried plantains with scrambled eggs, Zara found herself relaxing. She spoke softly about her past, albeit in fragments: her childhood in Ibadan, the sudden death of her parents, her attempts to find work, and how she'd been lured by the promise of a high-paying job in the city only to end up trapped in that awful warehouse. Ifani listened attentively, his eyes reflecting genuine concern. "I can't imagine what you've been through," he murmured, leaning forward and resting his elbows on the table. "But you're free now. I want you to know that whatever help you need, I'm here." The rest of the day felt like a montage of new beginnings. Ifani's driver took Zara to a modest boutique to buy clothes, as she owned nothing but the tattered garments from her captivity. Unsure and overwhelmed, she selected simple outfits: flowy ankara dresses, a few jeans, and comfortable blouses, trying not to indulge in items too luxurious for fear of seeming ungrateful. Yet Ifani insisted she pick out whatever made her feel good, occasionally pointing out a pretty scarf or a classy pair of shoes. Later, back at the house, Ifani showed her around the extensive property. The living room was adorned with framed photographs of his philanthropic works and family gatherings. She caught sight of an old, lovingly preserved photo of him as a young boy, standing in front of a small shop stall with an older woman she assumed was his mother. In the background was a bustling street market, proof that he hadn't always been wealthy. Seeing this only deepened her respect for him. Somehow, it soothed her to know he understood hardship from his own experiences. As evening approached, the two found themselves seated on the balcony, overlooking a vibrant orange sunset. The conversation drifted from serious concerns to more hopeful topics. When Zara spoke of her desire to return to school someday, Ifani's eyes lit up with encouragement. "You mentioned you studied computer science for a year before you had to drop out, right?" he asked, recalling an earlier conversation. "Well, if you're serious about going back, I'll gladly support you. Education is key to unlocking possibilities." For a moment, Zara felt tears prick at the corner of her eyes. She couldn't recall the last time someone had shown her genuine care, someone who wasn't trying to exploit her or demand something in return. The sense of gratitude swelled in her chest, almost overwhelming. Even the brilliance of the setting sun paled in comparison to the glimmer of hope she was beginning to feel. That night, she sat on the edge of her bed, replaying the day's events. There was still a lingering sense of disbelief. Why would a man she barely knew go through such trouble to help her? But a soothing voice in her heart reminded her to trust the kindness in front of her. In a world that had shown her cruelty, maybe this was a chance to see compassion as well. Across the house, in his private study, Ifani pored over new reports of illicit trafficking rings being brought down by the authorities. His mind went back to Zara's haunted eyes at the warehouse. The fact that he had spent half his wealth mattered little. One life saved was worth any price. He found himself wondering what sort of future Zara might carve out for herself, now that her life was no longer dictated by fear. Little did he know that in saving her, his own life's narrative had also shifted, leading him down a path of unexpected transformations. As the days slid into weeks, Zara transitioned from a timid houseguest into a blossoming member of Ifani's household. The staff at Hnigerian Villa, his drivers, housekeepers, and personal assistants, quickly warmed up to her gentle spirit. Initially, she maintained a cautious distance. A lifetime of mistrust could not be undone overnight. However, she slowly found comfort in their everyday routines and friendly conversations. From early morning workouts to late-night brainstorming sessions, Ifani's life was a whirlwind of obligations and opportunities. Often, Zara found him immersed in phone calls or reading copious documents regarding real estate acquisitions or philanthropic initiatives. She admired the intensity he applied to each endeavor. Yet, every time he saw her in passing, he would pause and greet her with a genuine smile or check on her well-being. The sincerity behind those small gestures eroded the cautious barriers Zara had built around herself. It wasn't long before Zara discovered she shared a passion for technology with Ifani. He had built part of his fortune investing in African startups tackling e-commerce, mobile payment solutions, and agricultural innovation. Intrigued by this side of his empire, she would ask questions about app development, customer acquisition, and the challenges of scaling a tech business in Africa. Ifani responded enthusiastically, often spending hours explaining how he decided which companies to invest in. At first, Zara worried she might be bothering him, but his patient excitement reassured her that he genuinely enjoyed sharing knowledge. One afternoon, after a business meeting, Ifani approached Zara with an idea that had been simmering in his mind. "You told me you were good at coding, right?" he inquired, recalling the conversation about her unfinished computer science degree. Zara nodded. "Yes, in school I was top of my class in programming, especially web development. But it's been a while. I may be rusty. I have a new project in mind," Ifani continued with an air of confidence. "It's an initiative to help young Nigerian entrepreneurs sell their handicrafts and local produce online more easily. An e-commerce platform specifically tailored to our local market needs. I'd love for you to take part in the planning and maybe even some development if you're up for it." Zara's eyes widened with a mix of excitement and trepidation. She had been envisioning a return to academic studies, but the thought of working on a real-world project, right away, felt exhilarating. "I'd love to," she replied quietly, feeling a spark inside her that she hadn't experienced since her life was derailed by traffickers. Encouraged by her willingness, Ifani introduced Zara to some of his staff members who specialized in software development and project management. At first, she merely observed, taking notes and learning about the project's objectives. However, it became evident to everyone that Zara had a keen mind and original insights into user experience and platform design. She demonstrated an empathetic understanding of what local artisans and small-scale farmers needed, having once been on the edge of poverty herself. With a natural eye for detail, she began to offer suggestions that improved the design's simplicity and attractiveness. Ifani watched her with a growing sense of pride, convinced he'd made the right decision in allowing her to explore this new ground. Beyond the project, Zara's life continued to expand in other ways. Ifani arranged for a private tutor to help her refresh her academic skills, ensuring she could return to the university system seamlessly if she chose to do so. Her days were busy, morning lessons in advanced math and programming, midday strategy meetings with Ifani's staff, and evenings spent in the quiet corners of the estate's library, reading about African tech pioneers and writing down her own ideas for the future. Each day, she drifted off to sleep exhausted but fulfilled, the ghosts of her past receding further into the background. Unsurprisingly, the blossoming of her new life also sparked a deeper emotional connection between Zara and Ifani. At first, it manifested as fleeting moments, a prolonged glance, a playful laugh over shared jokes, or the comforting silence when they worked side by side on business proposals. There was a growing tenderness between them that neither openly acknowledged. Despite the camaraderie, Zara occasionally felt a tremor of guilt, questioning whether her gratitude was clouding her judgment. And Ifani, ever mindful of the power dynamics in their unusual relationship, worried about taking advantage of someone he had rescued. Their hearts pulled them closer, but their minds often reminded them to tread carefully. Outside the mansion's gates, Lagos bustled with its familiar chaos of Danfo buses, street hawkers, and jam-packed traffic. Inside, Zara's world was shifting from a place of fear and uncertainty to one of promising ambition. She still had scars, both physical and emotional, but the path laid out before her was lined with hope. Ifani's encouragement felt like a soft wind at her back, propelling her toward a future she never believed she could attain. Neither of them yet dared to voice the emotions simmering beneath the surface. Duty and dreams mingled, forging a bond built on respect and admiration. In those budding days of learning and discovery, Zara gained not just a sense of purpose but also the invaluable realization that even the darkest chapters in one's life can make way for a better tomorrow. In the weeks that followed, Zara's involvement in the new e-commerce platform deepened. She spent late nights debugging code alongside Ifani's tech specialists, her hair tied back in a neat bun, her brow furrowed in intense concentration. The rapid progress they were making astonished everyone. Even Ifani's most experienced project manager remarked that Zara had an uncanny knack for problem-solving and a fresh perspective on user interface design. For Zara, immersing herself in the project was more than just work. It was therapeutic. The swirl of responsibilities kept the painful memories at bay. The haunting fear that once kept her awake slowly loosened its grip as she focused on building something new and meaningful. Ifani, for his part, was delighted to see Zara gain confidence. Often, he would stand quietly by the doorway to the project team's makeshift workspace in the villa's east wing, watching her converse with colleagues, her words brimming with passion. It was during one of these casual observations that Ifani first realized how much he admired not just her intelligence, but her very presence. She had a gentle smile that could light a room, and beneath her demure exterior lay a determination that mirrored his own. The realization tugged at his heart, catching him off guard. He reminded himself that Zara was someone he had saved from a dire circumstance. Any personal feelings, he reasoned, risked complicating the purity of that act. Despite his inner reservations, their unspoken bond grew stronger. They found themselves gravitating toward each other during breaks, sharing a quick meal in the kitchen, taking a breather on the balcony, or chatting about the future of African tech. During these moments, laughter flowed more freely than either expected. When they locked eyes, an electric awareness surged between them, accompanied by an unspoken question: what did this closeness truly mean? One evening, an unexpected power outage swept through the neighborhood. Though Ifani's home had generators, there was a brief lull between the lights going out and the backups kicking in. In those few seconds, Zara found herself bumping into Ifani in the dark corridor. They both let out a surprised laugh, the tension of near-constant work dissolving. The dim emergency lighting flickered on, casting shadows across their faces. Suddenly, the house was quiet, no humming appliances, no staff bustling about. It felt as though the world had paused just for them. You okay? Ifani asked softly, steadying her with a hand on her elbow. Zara nodded, breath catching in her throat. Yes, I'm fine. She swallowed hard, her heart pounding. Somewhere deep inside, she recognized this moment as a turning point, although she couldn't articulate why. She yearned to say something more but couldn't find the words. The generators roared to life, brightening the corridor and shattering the intimate moment. Ifani cleared his throat, stepping back. Right, I'll check with the staff to ensure everything is in order. That night, Zara lay awake, staring at the ceiling fan whirring overhead. Images from the day replayed in her mind. The gentle way Ifani had steadied her, his calm voice in the darkness. She was falling for him, and the realization both thrilled and terrified her. Could he possibly feel the same? And if he did, would he act on it, or would he see her only as someone he saved out of charity? A few days later, a confrontation of sorts took place in the villa's lush garden. Zara was reviewing lines of code on her tablet when Ifani approached, wearing a crisp white shirt rolled up at the sleeves. He looked somewhat nervous, an expression she wasn't used to seeing. I've noticed something, he began cautiously, about how we connect. I want to apologize if I've been giving you mixed signals. I never want to overstep or make you feel uncomfortable. Zara's cheeks grew warm. She set her tablet aside and stood, clasping her hands in front of her. I understand, she replied softly. I felt it too. But I'm not sure how we should proceed. My gratitude toward you is immense, but it's also more than that. She faltered, words failing to capture the complex swell of emotions inside her. Ifani's gaze was filled with compassion as he stepped closer. I care about you, sir. Not just as someone I helped, but as a woman whose strength and intellect I deeply admire. He paused to let the words sink in. But I also want to respect your autonomy. I know the last thing you need is another man trying to control or dictate your life. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. You've never treated me like a possession, she managed to say through a shaky voice. For that alone, I can't help but. The sentence hung unfinished, but the meaning was unmistakable. They stood under the flowering frangipani tree, the air thick with tension and the sweet scent of blossoms. Slowly, Ifani reached out, brushing his thumb gently across Zara's cheek where a lone tear threatened to fall. In that silent, tender moment, it felt as though the rest of the world melted away. Before either could lean in, a distant ring from Ifani's phone broke the atmosphere. Startled, he stepped back, pulling the device from his pocket. Business demanded his attention once again. Still, the confession lingered in the air, an unspoken promise that they would revisit this tender turning point. As Ifani hurried off to handle an urgent matter, Zara exhaled a trembling breath. She understood they both needed time. Time to reconcile their roles, their personal histories, and the undeniable bond forming between them. Whatever lay ahead, it was becoming clear that they were no longer merely benefactor and beneficiary. They were two hearts drawn together by fate, uncertain yet hopeful about the road that stretched before them. Days turned into weeks, and the closeness between Zara and Ifani only grew. Their work on the e-commerce platform progressed brilliantly, culminating in a soft launch that garnered a wave of positive feedback from local vendors. The success spurred Ifani to throw a small celebratory dinner at a trendy rooftop restaurant in Victoria Island. Zara was thrilled, not just by the professional milestone, but also by the possibility of spending a relaxed evening with Ifani in a public, social setting. Dressed in a graceful off-shoulder gown made of shimmering teal chiffon, Zara arrived at the venue with Ifani's staff. Her hair, braided elegantly around her crown, highlighted her bright eyes and soft features. Though she was used to the more casual attire in the villa, tonight called for a special look, and she radiated confidence. Ifani arrived separately, having been tied up at another meeting in the city. When he finally stepped onto the rooftop, the gathering crowd naturally parted for him. Clad in a tailored black suit with a simple gold wristwatch, he exuded the calm poise of a man used to orchestrating grand endeavors. However, when his gaze landed on Zara, the composure slipped for a fraction of a second. His eyes lit up, and a smile so genuine blossomed on his face that several onlookers turned to see what had caused such a warm expression. The dinner kicked off with laughter and music. A live band played a fusion of Afrobeats and jazz, setting a lively yet intimate mood. Friends and associates mingled, congratulating Zara and the project team for their efforts. Ifani made his rounds, accepting pats on the back from executives, local celebrities, and government officials who were always eager to be in his good graces. Yet, even with the swirl of people around them, Zara and Ifani often found each other's gaze from across the room. An unspoken magnetism pulled them together. After the main toasts, the two slipped to a quieter corner of the rooftop, where they could look out over the glittering skyline of Lagos. The city lights twinkled like scattered diamonds, reflecting the vibrant energy that pulsed through the metropolis. Breathing in the balmy night air, Zara let out a contented sigh. "It's so beautiful," she whispered, her voice filled with wonder at how far she'd come. Only months ago, her life had been overshadowed by terror. Now, she stood in one of the most luxurious spots in the city, working on a groundbreaking platform, and bonding with the man who had saved her. Ifani turned to face her fully, his expression filled with both admiration and a hint of vulnerability. "Not nearly as beautiful as you," he responded, and the candor in his voice made Zara blush. He stepped closer, gently placing a hand at her waist. They stood like that for a few moments, letting the energy between them build. Then, almost shyly, Ifani asked, "Would you like to get dinner, just the two of us, sometime this week? Outside of all this business stuff?" Zara's heart fluttered. She offered a soft smile. "I'd love that." The following Thursday evening found them at a boutique restaurant near the water, famed for its romantic ambience. Warm candlelight flickered across terracotta walls, and soft live music played in the background. The hush of the lagoon just outside created a magical atmosphere. Over a sumptuous meal of peppered prawns, jollof rice, and spicy goat meat, they spoke of everything from the platform's future expansions to childhood memories. Ifani confided in her about growing up poor, losing his mother early, and wanting to change the narrative for other underprivileged kids. Zara revealed deeper layers of her aspirations, about how she once dreamed of using technology to empower rural communities. When the dessert plates were cleared, Ifani looked at Zara with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. He reached into the inner pocket of his suit jacket, pulling out a small velvet box. In an instant, the entire world seemed to fall away. Zara felt her breath catch, her eyes locked on that little box. "I never thought I would meet someone so resilient, brilliant, and kind," Ifani said quietly, his voice trembling slightly with emotion. "You were the brightest light in a horrible place. Over these past months, you've shown me what it means to truly care for another soul, to believe in second chances, both for yourself and for me." He opened the box, revealing a simple but elegant diamond ring set in yellow gold. The stone caught the candlelight, casting tiny rainbows against the tablecloth. "Marry me, Zara. Share my life, my struggles, my joys. Let's build a future together." Tears of shock and joy blurred Zara's vision. A whirlwind of emotions collided in her chest. She remembered every torment of the past, every fear that had once caged her spirit. Now, it felt like every heartbreak had led her to this exact moment. Shaking but smiling, she nodded, her throat too tight to speak at first. Finally, she found her voice. "Yes, yes, of course." Cheers and applause erupted around them as some of the nearby diners caught onto what had happened. Ifani slipped the ring onto Zara's finger, and she clutched his hand, tears spilling down her cheeks. For a moment, they both just reveled in the magnitude of the promise they had made to each other. In Ifani's heart, the cost of purchasing Zara's freedom paled in comparison to the gift of love they now shared. Zara felt the weight of the ring, a symbol not of ownership, but of partnership, trust, and hope. With the music playing softly in the background, Ifani pulled her into his arms. Together, they swayed to the gentle melody, forgetting the rest of the restaurant entirely. In that timeless dance, they silently vowed to face whatever the future held, together. The wedding was set to take place at a prestigious event hall on the Lekki Peninsula, overlooking the serene waters that shimmered under the midday sun. Word of Ifani Enyenwu's engagement to a young tech-savvy woman named Zara had spread like wildfire, capturing the attention of the Nigerian social scene. Journalists speculated on every detail, from the bride's background to the scale of the celebration. Despite the swirl of public curiosity, both Hafani and Zara were determined to keep the ceremony as intimate as possible while still honoring the cultural grandeur of a traditional African wedding. On the day itself, the venue came alive with vibrant hues. The decor combined modern elegance with Nigerian flair, delicate white drapes and fairy lights interwoven with bursts of Ankara fabrics and fresh tropical flowers. Family and friends arrived in beautifully coordinated outfits, the men in sharp agbadas and the women in radiant gelis, each pattern telling a story of heritage and celebration. Lively drummers set an energetic beat, their rhythms echoing the joyous atmosphere. In the bridal suite, Zara's heart pounded with a mix of nerves and elation. She sat before a large mirror, clad in a stunning white gown with subtle lace detailing that paid homage to African motifs. Her veil was gently tucked into her meticulously styled hair. Surrounding her were a handful of close friends and women from Hafani's family, who had embraced her wholeheartedly. One of them, Auntie Ngozi, adjusted Zara's necklace, smiling warmly. "You're going to be a wonderful wife, my dear. I've never seen Hafani so happy," she whispered. Zara's eyes misted over at the kindness. "Thank you, Auntie. It means so much to have your support." She could still hardly believe that this day had arrived. Just a year ago, she had been trapped in a living nightmare. Now, she was moments away from marrying the man who had saved her life and awakened her dreams. Meanwhile, Hafani stood in a private room, adjusting his tailored suit while exchanging banter with his childhood friends. Dressed in a sleek navy tuxedo, he looked every bit the successful, refined businessman. Yet beneath the polished exterior, his hands trembled slightly. He glanced down at his wristwatch, an antique piece his mother once gave him. A wave of emotion washed over him as he thought about the journey that had led him here. The ceremony began to the sound of a soulful choir, their voices harmonizing in a way that sent shivers down the spine. One by one, the bridesmaids glided down the aisle. Then came Zara, stepping forward on the arm of a kind, elderly uncle from her hometown who had agreed to fill the role of giving her away. Each step she took felt like stepping further into the life she had always hoped for, one defined by possibility, love, and self-discovery. When she finally reached Hafani, he gently lifted the veil, revealing her bright, teary eyes. Before an officiant, they exchanged vows that resonated deeply with all who listened. Hafani spoke of compassion, resilience, and the promise to stand by Zara's side come what may. Zara spoke of gratitude, partnership, and the faith that love could truly transform even the darkest past. Their rings, simple gold bands engraved with their initials, slipped onto each other's fingers with trembling reverence. The crowd erupted in applause as the officiant pronounced them husband and wife. Hafani leaned in, pressing a gentle kiss to Zara's lips as the choir broke into a triumphant song. Camera flashes lit the moment like a constellation of tiny stars. The reception that followed was a lively affair, blending contemporary music with traditional dance performances. Guests feasted on an array of local dishes: jollof rice, peppered snail, fried fish, and pounded yam with rich egusi soup, alongside international cuisine. Toasts were made, stories were shared, and laughter filled the hall. In a particularly touching moment, Hafani recounted how meeting Zara had reignited his passion for philanthropy and reminded him of the essence of humanity that sometimes gets lost in the hustle for wealth. As the evening wore on, the newlyweds changed into matching traditional attire for the after-party. Zara wore a regal blue oak dress embroidered with golden thread, while Hafani donned a matching tunic and cap. They danced under the glowing chandeliers, arms wrapped around each other, eyes shining with love. It felt like the world was cheering them on, from the vibrant crowd of well-wishers to the staff who had become their extended family. In the months that followed, life settled into a joyful rhythm. Zara continued working on the e-commerce platform, now bearing a fresh wave of updates and expansions. She and Hafani spent quiet mornings strategizing new philanthropic projects, including scholarships for victims of trafficking, Zara's personal mission. Their shared dream was to ensure that what happened to her would happen to fewer and fewer people as they combined their resources and influence to fight such injustices. A year into their marriage, Zara gave birth to a baby boy they named Chidi, meaning God exists in Igbo. With tiny fingers gripping Ifani's thumb and Zara cradling him protectively, the trio formed a snapshot of serenity and hope. Sitting together in the nursery, they often reflected on the improbable path that had led them there, how a harrowing auction had somehow become the catalyst for a story of redemption, promise, and unwavering love. Though they could never erase the memories of a painful past, Ifani and Zara found solace in each other and in the beautiful future they were creating. In the end, their shared life wasn't just about forgetting where they came from. It was about acknowledging the pain, then moving forward with unity and purpose. It was a testament that love, when genuine and patient, has the power to heal even the deepest wounds, and to light the way toward a brighter tomorrow. The end. If you enjoyed this story, we invite you to give it a like and subscribe to our channel. Your support motivates us to keep bringing heartwarming stories almost every day. We are very grateful for your support. See you soon.